Hey, welcome back. And we are talking about how we are wired for worship. And I've been walking through a series of paths to worship. As I get into today, I want to just tell you something. I think this might be the most difficult pathway to worship. And also, just as a side, I know this podcast is aimed at teens and young adults, but realistically, this is the exact stuff that I need, not just as a dad or a pastor, just as a follower of Jesus. So I know that we got some older people listening as well, and I want to encourage you. We generally never get out of what we need to hear as a kid. So let me tell you today the third pathway to worship. We talked about how you're wired for worship, that worship is anything that we do aimed to please God, anything that brings God pleasure, not just that we aim to, but if it brings God pleasure. We talked about how gratitude is an incredible pathway to worship, that obedience is an absolutely necessary pathway to worship. And now I want to share with you what I think might be the most difficult pathway to worship, but it's going to be one that you need to grasp in your life, and that's surrender. What do we mean by surrender? Well, I think maybe the best place to go is in the Gospels. Right before Jesus was arrested and crucified, he gives us a perfect example of it. Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he is praying because he knows he's about to be arrested, he's about to be tortured, he's about to have the sin of the world put upon him. And in Mark 14:36, Jesus prays this, and he said, Abba, which means daddy, Father, all things are possible for you. Remove this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will. And I think this is really powerful because in this one prayer, Jesus acknowledges that to God, all things are possible. You can do anything that you want, God. And what I want you to do is take away this thing from me. But more than that, God, not my will, but yours be done. And so ultimately, what is surrender? Surrender is when we will give over what we want and accept what God gives to us. I quoted Rick Warren the other day. There's a few quotes in this worship thing that I really love by him. One of those was this: the deepest level of worship is praising God in spite of pain, thanking God during a trial, trusting him when tempted, surrendering while suffering, and loving him when he seems distant. At some point, you're going to go through, and maybe you are right now, a tremendous season of pain, a tremendous season of suffering. God's going to allow things to happen that you don't understand why. That you would say, if I were God, I wouldn't let this happen. Or if I was God, I would switch this immediately or change or rescue this right away. And God's not going to do what you want. And the question is, can you trust him? Can you love him? Can you give yourself over to God during this time? Now, what is God calling you to surrender? Surrender is acknowledging that you're not in control and that you're not the boss. So what controls your emotions? Have you surrendered your emotions to God or to the expectations and opinions of others? Because reality is you're going to surrender to something. Either you're going to surrender to God, or you're going to surrender to the expectations and the opinions of others, or you're going to surrender to money or to resentment or to fear or your own pride, your lust, your ego. You will surrender to something. And the only safe place that I can encourage you to surrender is to God. So have you surrendered to God? Or are you surrendering to others, to money, to resentment, to lust or ego? The thing that controls your emotions gets very close to the heart of worship. And the heart of worship truly is surrender. So today we're talking about the deepest, most difficult, but closest to God parts of worship, and that's surrender. Can you give the anxiety? Can you give the worry? Can you give the hurt? Can you give the questions to God? Can you know that God is calling you to walk a pathway that looks fearful, that looks scary, that you don't have all the answers to, that might be painful? And can you say, yes, God, you can do anything. You could change this, but not my will. Your will be done. And worshiping God calls you to surrender. If you worship God, you will be called to surrender. But let me tell you something. I think of a couple of just incredible quotes. Jim Elliot said, "He is no fool who gives up what he cannot keep to gain that which he cannot lose." And Jesus tells us that nobody gives up houses, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, anything for the sake of the kingdom without being rewarded not only on this earth, but more importantly, in the world to come. So your surrender is not in vain. your surrender will actually relieve you of things that are poisonous and will kill you and will open you up for God to give you what he wants to give you. But it's not going to be easy, but it is the heart of worship. And so my prayer is that God would show you and then give you the power to surrender what you need to him today.